This is the Italian Real Estate Podcast, here to help you with the ins and outs and basics of Italian real estate, presented by ItalianRealEstateLawyers.com. Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the Italian Real Estate Podcast, presented by ItalianRealEstateLawyers.com. We are back at it again with Italian attorney Marco Permunian. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I am doing great, thank you. And in today's episode, we wanted to talk a bit about the post-sale services that Marco and his team offer. We've talked a lot about kind of the initial stages in the process. What are the stages? How do they work? And various things such as dealing with the notary. But we wanted to talk a bit about the post-sale services and support that Italian real estate lawyers offer. So Marco, can you tell us a bit about some of the packages that are available to your clientele?
In the recent years, as the number of people that we were assisting was growing constantly, we realized that people needed more services that have to do with how to deal with your new property after you purchased it. So a lot of people, they were very happy to have their new home in Italy, but especially foreigners, they didn't know where to go from there, how to set up utilities, how to pay bills and taxes. So we have decided to offer a post-sale service where we help people with all their needs related to their new property. And more specifically, we offer 3 packages. A startup package where basically we assist people with paying utilities and, more importantly, setting up utilities, because the system in Italy is a little bit different from the system that you would find in other countries, and I'd say it's a little bit more difficult to deal with. So when it comes to setting up utilities like water or electricity, you have to first of all choose a provider, and the process can be rather difficult if the previous owner is not cooperative. Of course, if we're talking about a property that was owned by somebody else before you, but if the previous owner is cooperative, then you can get their utility bills statements that they got in the recent months before the sale, and use those to contact the service provider to basically switch the utilities in your name if the utilities are still active. If the utilities have been deactivated by the previous owner, then it's a little bit more difficult, and you're going to have to wait a little bit of time for the service provider. And at that point, you can choose any service provider, and there are normally 3 or 4 or 5 that are available, and you will have to wait 2-3 weeks max to have the utilities activated in your property. So there is a wait time, and it's very important to calculate when your moving date is, because the activation of the utilities is not immediate and instant.
I can actually say from personal experience that you guys did help me with getting some of my utilities set up and dealing with some of the companies. And I'll admit, even as somebody who has a little bit of Italian under their belt, I have certain limits. And so it was really great to have you guys along the way, especially to get some of the things set up, because things maybe function in a little bit of a different way than what I've been accustomed to in other parts of the world. So Marco, could you maybe tell us a little bit more about how you guys actually go about setting up the utilities and what that all looks like from your perspective?
So normally you start by visiting a store for the service provider, and or you can call the call center. Unfortunately, most likely everybody will speak Italian only, especially at the call center. And also if you're requesting the activation of the service through the phone, in some cases, Italian might be the only language that is accepted, especially if you have to accept some terms and conditions. So having the help of an expert, an Italian expert, normally helps very much in those situations. And before we talk about the activation process, I wanted to mention that normally the best rates are applied by regional service providers. And normally in every region, you will find different service providers. So I believe it's also important to deal with an expert when it comes to choosing the service provider, especially if you are unfamiliar with the process and how they charge you. They have a very interesting way of charging you, and the bills that you receive normally can be not easy to read. There are a million charges, but that's what we're here to do to help you also navigate this process and make sure that you get the lowest possible rates. As for the activation process, you will normally be required to read the POD number that is on your meter. So you're going to have to go physically to the property and read the numbers that identify your meter. And POD means point of delivery. And that's basically the number that identifies your meter and that you will have to give on the phone or where you're going in person. That you will have to state that on the forms even if you visit a store. And that's very important because you will always be required to state that number when it comes to activating a service, or even if you're transferring the utilities in your name. As for documents that you're required to provide to activate the service, normally you'll need to provide your ID, your fiscal code, so your codice fiscale, the Italian one, of course, and of course your full name, residency address, email, contact information. And in some cases, it will also be required or be offered to provide your IBAN number, which is basically your Italian bank information, which the service provider can use to debit automatically the charges in your bank account. And normally that allows you to save some money if you, of course, activate this service, because it's easier for the service provider to charge you. But to move on to the next package, that includes all of the services that I've spoken about so far, plus some additional services, which would be assistance with paying taxes. A lot of people, a lot of our clients, they are concerned about how to pay taxes, and that is a justified concern because paid property taxes in Italy is not easy. Of course, here we're talking about not the one-time registration tax that you pay when you buy the property, because that's due actually before you become the owner of the property. We're talking about the annual taxes that you will have to pay from time to time, more or less every year, as a property owner in Italy. And those more specifically are the IMU, so the annual property tax that you have to pay to the municipality where the property is located, and the Tari, which is the garbage tax, which is now mandatory in Italy. So every person who has, legally speaking, residency in one property, also based on the number of people who reside in that property, will have to pay this tax. And the amount is calculated based on the number of people that live in the property, based on the type of property, based on the area, and based on how big the property is, so based on the square meters. And paying the garbage tax is also at times not as straightforward, which is why we are really helping a lot of people that find our service very useful, because it's not easy to pay it.
Well, that's interesting, Marco, to hear about and how that's all set up. I mean, even about the Tari and how it's based on the number of people living in the apartment. I mean, it's a very basic thing, but very much makes sense. But I'm curious, what about if someone needs to get, say, internet, phone, or even if they have pets and they need to be able to bring their pet over, or they want to be able to have that pet get a pet passport, a European pet passport. I have to say that 5 times fast. How will that all work? Are those other areas, or even say like insurance for the home or alarm systems, is that part of the services that you offer as well?
I'm happy you asked that, because that leads into the next package, which is the all-inclusive package, where we normally offer these services that are included in the previous 2 packages, plus normally 3 more services that you can choose among, finding a property manager for your property, helping you get a mobile phone in Italy, home insurance, maybe you need to set up the air conditioning in your property. And also we can help you with opening a bank account, with installing an alarm system, with finding a gardener. So a variety of services that we can help you with after you purchase your property. And I've said we can help you with a maximum of 3 more services, because we do offer another type of service, which I've talked about in another episode, which is our relocation package, where we offer you a assistance with the relocation process, and we assist you from A to Z in the relocation process. So a lot of these services can also be offered as part of that package, where basically we assist you with your with moving from America or another country to Italy into your new property. And of course, these are things that people could take care of by themselves, but language barriers or distance make it so that normally buyers, foreign buyers, they do want us to help with these post-sale services as well. And I think that what the advantage of using Italian real estate lawyers also for to take care of these things for you is that we, first of all, we know the property. So we know the property and we know you. And the same way that we helped you find the best price for your property, we will help you find the best rates for electricity or for installing your air conditioning or to open a bank account for residents or non-residents. So not only we help you with the language, not only you have a dedicated person in the team that help you throughout this after sale service or process, I should say, but also we know you and we know the property that you've purchased, so that makes us probably a little bit different than using somebody else who's not familiar with your process, with your property that you purchased.
Well, Marco, thank you so much for going into so much detail about the post-sale services that you guys offer over at ItalianRealEstateLawyers.com. But of course, if anybody is needing help with purchasing a property in Italy and full relocation to Italy, how can they get in contact with you and your team?
People can contact us through our website, ItalianRealEstateLawyers.com, or give us a call. Our number is on the website.
Absolutely fantastic. And of course, if you're listening in and interested in more about Italian property or even about how to move to Italy, be sure that you are subscribed to this YouTube channel as well as the audio only podcast. But of course, on the YouTube channel, you are also automatically subscribed to the Italian Citizenship Podcast, another project that Marco and I collaborate on, where we talk about some of the finer details of the legal aspects of making Italy your home. And also, if you're interested to hear more about life abroad, or living abroad as a dual citizen expat, be sure to come over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Rafael Di Furia, or you can search for Not Your Average Globetrotter on YouTube, Google, or your favorite podcasting player of choice, where I talk about some of the other day-to-day details of living abroad. But again, Mr. Marco Permunian, thank you so much for making yourself available for this episode of the Italian Real Estate Podcast, presented by ItalianRealEstateLawyers.com. Of course, I'm Rafael Di Furia. Stay safe and healthy out there, and we will see you all next time. Later.
Thank you.